I want to be just like Daddy. Have you ever heard that? Maybe you even said that. Children usually want to be just like their parents. And they want their parents to be close by them. And they like playing hide and seek, but they always want their parents to find them. And they want to find their parents quite easily. If it's hard to find their parents, they start to get worried and they can panic. They want to find their parents without having to search too far. The joy is in the finding and the being found. Last time we talked about God being like a parent. How do we become His child? Let's take a deeper look. We were just talking about hide and seek in that game that children like to play. Well, God was hidden for many, many centuries, many, many generations. He would only be able to speak to us through certain people called prophets because of that sin that we've been talking about, that infection that we have that separates us from Him and gets in the way of our relationship with us. And then, like we said last time, Jesus sacrificed Himself for us. And then something amazing happened though, because Jesus didn't stay dead. Like those children playing hide and seek and not being able to find their parents, some dear friends went to go and find Jesus' tomb to do what the law required, to do the burial rites and everything that they hadn't been able to do yet. But they got there and He wasn't there. They were so upset, just like those children playing hide and seek and they can't find their mummy or their daddy. They were upset and they were crying. Two of them ran away to go and tell their friends and because they were so afraid. But one of them stayed there and was crying in the garden. And then Jesus Himself turned up. She didn't even recognize Him because through her tears, she just thought He was the gardener. And then He spoke her name. And she realized who He was. He was alive. Jesus, who had been crucified, who they had buried, was now alive. And He turned up over the next 40 days about at least 10 times to different groups of people, maybe 2 or 3 people, maybe one person, maybe a whole group of people. He allowed them to touch Him. He allowed them even to touch the wounds in His hands and His feet that were still there from the nails that went through them. He even ate breakfast with them one morning. He wasn't a ghost. He was figment of their imagination, some apparition or something. He was real. It's one thing for Jesus to raise someone else from the dead, and He'd done that a couple times. There was a little girl who was ill and had died before He got to her, and He brought her back to life. And then there was His friend Lazarus. Again, he was away and Lazarus died. And Jesus actually called him out of the tomb, wrapped in kind of the cloths like the mummies were. And He came out of the tomb wrapped up. But to bring Himself back to life, that's a whole nother story. You see, this is the proof that He was who He said He was. Jesus said, I and the Father are one. And believe me when I say that I am in the Father and the Father is in me. He's saying that He and God are the same. They're intertwined together. And not only had He paid the price for what we do wrong, our sins, but He had even conquered, canceled the whole penalty of that infection of sin in our lives, which is death itself. Now we could be free. Of course, we're still infected with that thing called sin, which drives us to do things that we know are wrong. And the world is still affected by that sin. But because Jesus conquered death by coming alive again, there's a special word for that we use called resurrection. And Easter we call Resurrection Sunday. Jesus conquered death so that sin isn't only paid for, but it doesn't have control any longer over our destiny. So what does that mean for us in real life? Guilt is something that we've done wrong. Whether we know we're not, we've done something wrong and we have guilt for it. Shame is something when, whether or not we've done something wrong, we feel something's wrong with us. We are wrong. And many religions try and find answers to guilt and shame. They say that if you do enough good things, it'll compensate for it and make up for it. Or if you do enough good things, God will like you and he'll overlook those things and it'll be okay. But trying to do enough good things, like we said the other week, it's kind of like trying to jump over the Grand Canyon. It's way too far for us to accomplish. But something that Jesus did through his death, through coming alive again, Jesus built a bridge over that Grand Canyon of all the things that we've done wrong, so that we don't have to try and jump it ourselves. He has found the answer. He's found that third way we talked about last time. We can know that we are forgiven. He's dealt with that guilt. And we can know that we're accepted. He's dealt with that shame. We don't have to do nice things to try and appease God. That's already dealt with. All we have to do is to allow him to love us and for us to love him back. Have that relationship with him, doing things for God, not because we have to earn his love and respect and attention, but just out of gratitude and love for him, because we want to. And the amazing thing is that we have his help to do it, because he's still alive. God is no longer having to play hide and seek with us, because God himself was born and lived and gave his life for us, and then rose again, came alive again, conquered death, so that the whole penalty of the wrongdoings that we've done have been paid for. So how do we respond to that? How do we get hold of this great gift? That's what we're talking about next time, so come back again. Meanwhile, have you ever thanked God for his great mercy, his justice, and his grace? Why don't you give it a try?